Adam.
Yes.
In WWE history, there have been a fair few disastrous careers. I think it's fair to say. You can point to some real obvious ones like Giant Gonzalez. Pretty cursed wearing that bodysuit. Who's going to have a chance of getting over wearing that?
Yeah.
Lars Sullivan. Probably a good one.
God.
Injuries, controversies, not being very good ursaries, all kinds of things.
He has got a 5-star match.
He does have a 5-star match. That's more than I have. So
Yeah.
what can I say? Brachus, perhaps, if you want to go even
That's a name
further
I've known in years.
into the annals, But if you want to talk about like cursed, if you want to talk about circumstances conspiring against someone, to just create a cacophony of rubbishness, I'm actually going to begin this one by pointing to a certain pro wrestling legend, a beloved pro wrestling legend, especially after this year. How about the Stinger? Right? In WWE, you think about it, the injuries, the being booked like ass against Triple H, joining the NWO.
Yeah, his notorious friendship with those guys.
Yeah, his big mates in pro wrestling. But can you think of another WWE one that is as cursed as the Stinger was?
Yeah, well, none of those awful WWE runs compare to the guy we're here to talk about today.
And that guy is the one, the only, the released on the 3rd of May, 2024, at the time of writing, Big Gable Steveson, a complete disaster in WWE from start to finish. Fortunately, one that took up very little airtime. But when you bring a guy in and you compare him to Kurt Angle from day one, I think the return on investment has to go down as one of the lowest in WWE history.
Yeah, I suppose you've got to try and balance this out. Like, he was rubbish, but at the same time, they sort of saddled him straight out of the gate and built him up so much that it was almost impossible to live up to expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you cannot compare someone to the greatest rookie in pro wrestling history from day one and then expect them to live up to that. Brock Lesnar was another comparison, and we've seen that with like Parker Boudreaux as well.
Yeah.
It could be another example. What was his character called? Harland.
Yeah.
Down in NXT. From day one, he had the Brock Lesnar comparisons. Gable Steveson over here because he's an Olympic gold medal winner. But it's a long, convoluted saga, and one we're going to dig into.
Yeah, exactly. WWE have been very excited about this guy and keeping an eye on him for a long old time before they unveiled him, of course. He was someone that they'd had a lot of attention, according to The Observer, around for a few years before they officially signed him. He'd actually opened up and said himself, look, he'd love to get into... Well, he referenced mixed martial arts, but also pro wrestling as well. He said, it's a dream I've had since I was a kid to become a professional wrestling superstar. Then, obviously, he wins gold at the, I think, 125 kilogram category of wrestling at the Tokyo Olympics. Again, the teaser's jumping to either pro wrestling or to MMA. And then SummerSlam 2021 rolls around, and they have the big fanfare, and they bring him out, and they basically explicitly tell the fans, this is a guy to watch. Yeah, this is the next Kurt Angle, the next big thing, Brock Lesnar. Like, he was someone that they put their full weight behind, and it was almost at that point you were like, well, it's make or break time already.
Yeah, this is it. Like, it's that weight of expectation, especially as he was so young when he signed. I think he was 21 years old.
Yeah.
That is a lot. And, like, look, you can be the most impressive physical specimen in the world. You can be this prodigious amateur wrestler, as he was. But even from that first appearance in SummerSlam, it was pretty clear that the Kurt Angle comparison was completely insane. Because the thing about Kurt Angle wasn't just that he was this successful Olympian, which obviously Gable Steveson is. It wasn't that he was just this incredible amateur wrestling, which obviously Gable Steveson was. It was that he had this unique charisma about him. Immediately, Kurt Angle picked this sport up so quickly. He had the intangibles, he had the presence. He knew when to make himself look like a killer and when to make himself look like a complete buffoon. He had such a great balance effectively from day one. And kind of as Gable Steveson stood there in the middle of the ring, just exuding none of these qualities, I think it was an early warning sign of that SummerSlam. I
agree. I think in terms of fans don't always like being told, here's this person, cheer for them.
Yeah.
They sort of exploited that with the Kurt Angle debut of just like, you guys must be so happy that I'm here. Now they're like, who the hell are you? I immediately don't like you. And it worked so well for him. He was such a brilliant, full, but also phenomenal athlete as well. Like, it's sort of part of what WWE does now just generally. Their next in line thing is, you are an amazing athlete, but can you do the other side of pro wrestling as well? Can we, mold you into being able to wrestle properly rather than just be a former gymnast or a former American football star or whatever it may be? But there's, especially in WWE, that comes with a lot of other things that come with it. The charisma is a large part of it, that presence, that aura, that just thing to make people engage with you more than, wow, that was impressive. And I don't know, I think the moment you saw him, you were like, has he got it?
And then they went full throttle with all of this, including this. How can we forget this, right? The 2021 WWE draft, couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months after they signed Gable Steveson, they drafted him to Raw.
Yes.
By all reports, he wasn't yet training full-time
in
pro wrestling. I think he was training with Mr. Kennedy for a while, but he wasn't at the PC full-time. He was still doing some amateur wrestling stuff. They sent him to Raw in the draft. They sent him ahead of people he was round 6, right? It's not like he was this high level pick
the
or
first
whatever.
pick, yeah.
But they literally picked him before Sami Zayn and some other names. And when you do that, what that does is that creates further weight of expectations, because when you draft someone to a show, you expect to see them on that show. So what WWE did when they drafted into Raw was telling you, hey, you might be seeing Gable Steveson a little sooner than you might think.
Yeah, the clock started at that point, didn't it? If they drafted him, then he must be almost ready to start wrestling, rather than he's someone we really see potential in, and we want to showcase that we're really chuffed to have signed this person, but we're going to go away, and when he's ready, a bit like Jade Cargill, when he's ready, we'll bring him out properly.
Sure, but I guess the difference is we've seen Jade Cargill again.
Yes.
So we did, to be fair, later, going over into 2022, we did see Gable Steveson again.
Yeah.
He was at WrestleMania. He was introduced by Stephanie McMahon, I believe it was, and he did a suplex to Kurt Angle. No, not Kurt Angle, to Chad Gable. I've done it again myself.
Well, they did show him with Kurt Angle later. We're going to get to that.
They did indeed. And when he had that physical spot, again, it was like, okay, maybe we're edging closer to something here. Maybe we're going to see this Olympian, this new Kurt Angle. But again, watching these appearances, you don't want to write off someone that early in their career.
No.
The thing is, you cannot teach charisma in pro wrestling a lot of the time. It's either in you or it isn't in you. And in this case, again, not really getting much from television.
Chad Gable, he could probably, he's so strong, he could probably make me look good throwing him around. That wasn't the bar that he had to clear.
Yeah.
It was how you follow that up. And I don't think they helped, as you alluded to there, by immediately the next time, I think it was the next time we saw him anyway, have him be there doing milk stuff with Kurt Angle.
Yeah, that was in December of 2022, so it was the next time we saw him. Gable Steveson appeared in WrestleMania in April, went vanishing again for 8 months. And again, there are reasons for this, right? Going away, amateur wrestling, all of that stuff. I believe there was some confusion about his participation in the new season. He wasn't training full-time at the PC, all of this. But it was totally reasonable for fans to expect this because WWE drafted him. They created that weight of expectations, and then they literally had him and Kurt Angle, like you said, standing right there. Insane.
And, it only got worse from there, really, because then it was time for him to start appearing on television, and it was on my beloved NXT. It was really weird as well, because he suddenly shows up and he's advising Eddie Thorpe against Damon Kemp. You know what? That's difficult. It's his real life brother. What?
Big Bob Steveson.
So that's happening. Okay. And you think, well, regardless, and I will say this, there was one moment where I thought he might have something. There was some NXT Underground shenanigans, and Gable Steveson was in and around all of it, and some dudes just rushed him, and he suplexed everyone in sight, and me and Hamflet, to be fair, both said, I tell you what, that looked awesome. If you can do more of that sort of thing, and maybe you give him a manager to talk for him or whatever, and he has a great first match when we see him out there on PLE, then maybe. Then the Great American Bash happened.
Oh boy.
Right. Our opinions of Baron Corbin have changed quite drastically, I think it's fair to say, in recent...
My opinions of Baron Corbin have gone up and down like a yo-yo over the years. Yeah.
But it was almost impressive how he got Corbin cheered. Yeah. Right, now that's not weird, because he's was part of the Wolf Dogs. Brilliant tag team that they are. But at the time, it was like, right, stick anyone with Corbin and they'll get cheered because it's Baron Corbin. not only was Corbin cheered, the match was a complete disaster, and it didn't even put Gable Steveson over in the end. So it achieved. It shouldn't achieve nothing, actually, that's a lie. It achieved getting heel Baron Corbin over.
Yeah, as a babyface.
Yes.
It was so wild. The thing about Baron Corbin is, right, whether you like him or you don't, whether you like his work or you don't enjoy it, whatever, he's very good at his job.
Oh, absolutely.
He is excellent at his job, right? He will make himself look like a complete buffoon with dog food and the bum-ass Corbin gimmick and all that stuff.
He'll get pushed over by Rob Gronkowski after Mojo Rawley kneels behind him because whilst he's dressed as a king.
Exactly.
He's up for out, basically.
If it serves the story, if it serves the situation, Baron Corbin will do it. He's also very, very good at just being a heel, like a grinding down heel who is purposefully not flashy, apart from the End of Days and the Deep Six, which are really cool moves. But he's not this flashy ass heel.
No.
He's not playing for pops or anything like that. He knows that his role there is to make you like the other person, right? He is deliberately kind of boring.
He's a headlock in human form.
Exactly. And he's very, very good at that.
Or he was before the Wolf Dogs, now he's also been.
And then Gable Steveson
Oh, God, I remember watching this going, what's happening?
And to further this, to further your point...
That guy sums up. What the hell's going on?
I can't believe it. To further hammer home this point, this is not 2019 and 2018, right? People don't bring beach balls to shows that often anymore. People don't chant Rogue CM Punk. Well, he's there, obviously. But, you know, people aren't holding shows hostage or whatever.
No,
they
you
aren't
just
going
like you
nuts.
went and watched AEW instead. It's that simple.
Exactly. The WWE audience of today is very responsive to what the promotion wants them to be responsive to. It's a super compliant crowd.
Yeah.
And they destroyed this match like it was, the peak Vince years when everyone was pissed off with the product and Cesaro's jumping in the crowd to rip beach balls apart. This was quite the remarkable achievement.
I also realised that guy's wearing an NXT t-shirt as well. Like, he's Mr. NXT and he's like, what are you doing to my beloved product?
What is this? What's going on, Sean? I can't believe it. And across the board, you go back and watch that match and like, for example, like, I know, say what you will about this platform, but the cage match rating is one of the lowest of the years, right? So it's clear that it's not something that people enjoyed. You can say that's a little harsh, right? On a fundamental level, it's not the worst match of 2023, right? It's simply not. There are bigger Omni shambles out there. You can go looking for them. There's one where a guy gets injected in his willy. That's probably the worst match. I'm not going to name the promotion, but that's probably the worst match of 2023, right? But I think it speaks again to the volume of expectation and the delivery, like what we got in return for those expectations. I think the rating is almost kind of warranted from that standpoint. But things only get weirder for old Gable as things progress. By September last year, Dave Meltzer's reporting that he's been removed from the NXT roster, right? So he's kind of gone missing again after the Great American Bash, right? He's not wrestling anymore, necessarily. Shawn Michaels later comes out and says that, hey, he'll be back, don't worry, it's just a scheduling thing. It's just a scheduling thing. Gable will be back, he's a busy guy, blah, blah, blah. And there's all this speculation at the same time about the Olympics and trials and him participating maybe in those when they come around in April and maybe he has to prep. But then Gable Steveson re-emerges. It becomes 2024 this year, as things tend to do on December 31st.
That's how calendars work.
A new year begins. And he starts working these squash matches, these dark matches on SmackDown. He's working the likes of Cameron Grimes, very skilled wrestlers. He works 4 or 5 of those in a row. And by February, they just completely stop. And once again, we're in this kind of Gable Steveson void, really. And there's no information coming out. There's no reports of him training. He just had this series of matches that seemed like some kind of experiment, maybe to see how he'd get over with the live crowd. And it suddenly stops again.
Yeah, I think it's easy to be sort of smart after the fact, isn't it, Andy? It's easy for me to sit here right now and say what they should have done is immediately, or not immediately, but soon after the Great American Bash, book him in another program and get people to forget about the feud and match with Baron Corbin. Let's get some positive reactions, some positive memories around him as a wrestler. The longer they left it, it felt like people were like, no, I'm fine. I mean, the product was obviously going from strength to strength at this time as well, so it wasn't like they were crying out for someone like this to really grab people's attention. I think this, for me, looking back now, is when the writing was on the wall. Like you say, the talk about the Olympic trials, which, yes, if he'd have gone away and they kept him for the Olympics this year and then gone and won a gold medal, then they could be like, bloody hell, look, he's won 2 bloody gold medals now, and now he's coming straight back and kicking ass. But I think the moment that they started doing that, you're like, wrestling fans can be a bit fickle of like, if you're not giving 100% to this, then what are we doing here? Yeah. Henry Cejudo, in fact, said that WWE blocked him from appearing at the Olympic trials in April. And then we hear about all these releases happening, and his name gets brought up because it's like, why are you releasing someone like a Trevor Lee, a Cameron Grimes, this brilliant, you know my love for Cameron Grimes, this brilliant wrestler who's tried with whatever they've given him and been squashed by this guy who they haven't done anything with since the Great American Bash. I think at that point the writing was on the wall, and they released him, and Meltzer says basically he got given a big contract when he signed, and he wasn't cutting it. You know, they take a punt on people sometimes. Sometimes it pays off. I'm not saying that they took a punt on Logan Paul, but like, he had no pro wrestling experience. He had wrestling experience, but no pro wrestling experience. He was a great athlete. But like, look at the difference he's had in the last few years compared to someone like a Gable Steveson, whilst doing all the other stuff, not just focusing completely on it. It can be a lottery, I will admit that, but it's been disastrous for a number of years. Like, I can barely pinpoint a positive moment for Gable Steveson outside of smiling and waving at SummerSlam and hoiting Chad Gable about at WrestleMania.
And for the amount of money that they've presumably invested in him, and the amount of hype that they gave him, and the promotion and the draft and all of this stuff, a lot of the blame really does have to go on the company's shoulders for this, because I think, like, and again, it's really easy to say these things now that the WWE run is over for him. I'm sure he'll find some other line of work,
absolutely.
right? Like MMA, he bulldozed people, surely.
Yeah. Look what Brock Lesnar did there after he left WWE.
If he can learn the stand-up game, like with his wrestling pedigree, he's probably going to be a force. But when it comes to pro wrestling, right, it was pretty clear from most, even just casual observers, watching that first SummerSlam appearance, the charisma's not there. The spark is not there. And you cannot just compare people to Kurt Angle. It's such an unfair expectation to set on someone, just like with Parker Boudreaux and Brock Lesnar. I'm pretty sure Parker Boudreaux only got those comparisons because he had blonde hair and was quite big.
He looked a bit like him.
Yeah, exactly. But at the end of the day, this run was completely cursed from day one. And it's ended the way a lot of people thought it would, unfortunately. I think what probably happened was that some guy at Endeavor who doesn't know Wrestler A from Wrestler B was probably looking at the spreadsheet, seeing this big-ass salary, seeing he'd only wrestled once on TV, and going, hey, what is this? Get rid of this. I think it's probably the same reason, similar reason they've just cut Jerry Lawler loose as a broadcaster. Whatever cold-hearted business type was looking at these things was probably like, who's this old dude? What are we keeping him around for? We saw it with Endeavor when they took over the UFC, and they released people who had sentimental attachments, legends of the sport. Randy Couture, gone straight away. So it's like, it's a very similar thing. It's quite a stingy company. They will absolutely offer big money contracts to your Seth Rollins and people who are there every week, as we've just seen. But when it comes to, frankly, busts like Gable Steveson,
this is the thing. Just to wrap this up. Like, this isn't them never saying that they will take on an athlete and try and mold them into a pro wrestler. They sort of already had a ready-made almost, in terms of maybe needing to tweak to learn the WWE style. But Jade Cargill is a perfect example of just like, right, she's an athlete, but now let's make her a pro wrestler in WWE's eyes. And they took her away and did that. This Next in Line program has been working wonders for them.
Tiffany Stratton.
They've been bringing through, exactly.
Great example.
So, but the problem with it is, if you don't deliver, if you don't give them the results they're hoping for, now there's another 20 people coming through for the next round of Next in Line signings from gymnastics, football, MMA, athletics, that'll be ready to take your place. And this is just one of the warning tales you could tell people who are potentially getting into wrestling, because my word, it all went so wrong.
It really did. And to kind of wrap this up on quite a sour note, the Olympic trials thing, if they just let him go like a month earlier, he'd have been able to go and do those.
Yeah.
But according to Henry Cejudo, they blocked him from doing them. And then now, obviously, they let him go in early May. See you later, guys. But hey, listen. Thanks for joining us for this one here.
It's fun, this.
Yeah, cursed WWE runs. What are your most cursed WWE runs in history? Drop them down in the comment section below. Once you've done that, check this puppy out right here. It's us blethering more pish. But like in a really fun, endearing way, because that's
it.
That's what we do.
See you soon.
See you later.